Hello everyone, welcome to our Risk Management School. My name is Nicola Alcocer and I'm a member of the Pirani team. I'm excited to be here with you today to explore the theoretical and practical aspect of the different topics that we will see. To help us delve into this session, we're happy to have with us Alejandro Orrego, CEO at Pirani. Hi Alejandro, it's great to have you here with us. How are you?
Hi Nico, hi everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this Risk Management School.
Great. Before we begin, I would love to invite everyone to continue learning about the world of risk management by visiting the Pirani Academy, where you will find valuable learning materials. I will leave the link in the chat so you can see our website now. They are done. And remember, if you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to make them through the question and answer section. We will be happy to answer them at the end of this webinar. Now, let's begin with this exciting topic. Over to you, Alejandro.
Thanks, Nico. So, as the invitation says, today we want to talk about ISO 27001 standard. What was the update in 2022? And what is the statement of applicability that some companies need to do in order to comply the ISO. So before that, let's start, just refresh some concepts of the norm of the standard. So yeah, basically the ISO, remember that it came from International Organization of Standardization, and there's a lot of standards, but the family of series of 27,000, sorry, is about information technology, security techniques, information security management system, and the overview and the vocabulary. So the series provides a framework for information security management system. So you're also going to know, you're going to see a lot of the ASMS, and includes guidelines, best practices, and terminology related to information security. So to better understand the family and the series of 27,000 is something like this: is the family, the 27,000 is the vocabulary standard, and then the 27,001, 6, and 9 talk about the requirements and standards. There's another that talks about guidelines standards and sector-specific guidelines standards. But today we're going to talk about specifically about the ISO 27001. That is the cornerstone of the series. That is the only one that has the certification that most of companies that want to comply the information security management system need to run the ISO 27001, and of course, and it has a very important document that is the Annex A, that is the information security controls reference that we're also going to discuss today. We don't have the time to touch every ISO, of course, but just to put that, to be aware that there's something very interesting about the ISO 27005 that focuses on information security risk management, that maybe in a next risk management school, we're gonna focus a masterclass only to those, because this ISO also provides a list of threats and vulnerabilities, but that's another masterclass. Today, we're gonna talk about the 27,001 series and the Annex A about the controls. So the ISO 27001 is about information security, cybersecurity, that, by the way, are not the same, and privacy protection. It's an international standard that outlines the requirements for establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continually improving an information security management system. Within the context of an organization, it provides a systematic approach for managing sensitive information, ensuring its confidentiality, integrity, and availability. You're always gonna hear about these three concepts. This is the main concepts of ISO 27001: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So the ISO has some updates or revisions over the years. The first one was in 2005, was the initial version of the standard, was published that year. This version provides the foundation for the management of the information security system. And then in 2013, a significant update occurred. This version brought several improvements and refinements in the standard in for a more risk-based approach to information security management system. Then in 2018, it was an update in the 27,000 standard, the family. And last year, 2022, was an update in the 27,001 standard. And the main change was the number of controls had decreased from 114 to 93. So most of companies still are working with the 114, but today we're going to show you what was the change to the 93 controls, and are placed into 4 different sections instead of previous 14. There are 11 new controls, while none of the controls were deleted, and many controls were merged. So basically, the 93 controls are categorized in 4. Organizational controls are 37. People controls are just 8. Physical control are 14, and technological controls 34. Remember, this is the Annex A for the ISO 27001, and it looks something like this. In the organizational controls, we have a code, the 5 for organizational controls. And the first one is policies for information security. And the control will be information security policy and topic-specific policies shall be defined, approved by management, published, communicated to, and acknowledged by relevant personnel and relevant interest parties, and reviewed and planned intervals and if significant charges occur. 2, information security roles and responsibilities will be the title and the description. Information security roles and responsibilities shall be defined and allocated according to their organization needs. 5.3, segregation of duties. Conflicting duties and conflicting areas of responsibility shall be segregated. So this is an overview of the controls. Remember, in organizational controls, there are 34 more. We're not gonna deep into every one of them. I'm just gonna show you the overview of the norm. Remember, if you buy the ISO, it looks something like this. Oh no, this is the 7001, sorry. So, but it's something like this. The control, we have the number, the code, and the description. So maybe the 5.20 addressing information security within supplier agreements and its description. Then people controls. So these controls are put into people. This name is about humans. The code is 6. The first is screening. The description will be background verifications checks on all candidates to become personnel shall be carried out prior to joining the organization, and on an ongoing basis, taking into consideration applicable laws, regulation, and ethics can be proportional to the business requirements, the classification of the information to be accessed, and the perceived risk. This is something very common in AML, the anti-money laundering in context, but again, we should do screening when we're going to hire people or company. 6.2, terms and conditions of employment. It seems ridiculous, but some companies didn't have this. So the employment contractual agreement shall state the personnel and organization responsibilities for information security. 6.3, information security awareness, education, and training. This is something that companies sometimes forget, because they think that risk management or information security risk management is only about technology, and that's a very important aspect, of course, but there's also the cultural challenge. You need to train your people. You need to make them understand what's going on. So the controls personnel of the organization or relevant interest parties shall receive appropriate information security awareness, education, and training and regular updates of the organization information security policy, topic-specific policies and procedures, and relevant for their job function. There's another 5 more controls in people, but let's move on to the physical controls. That this is, as the name says, is something put it in the offices, the headquarters, the hardware. Is the 7.1 physical security perimeters. Security perimeters shall be defined and used to protect areas that contain information and other associated assets. Physical entry, secure areas shall be protected by appropriate entry controls and access points. Securing offices, rooms, and facilities. The control will be physical security for offices, rooms, and facilities shall be designed and implemented. And last is the technological controls. It's about software, technology. There are 34 controls. This point is the number 8. User endpoint devices. Information stored on, processed by, or accessible via user endpoint devices shall be protected. 8.2, privileged access rights. This is very important. The allocation for use of privileged access rights shall be restricted and managed. 8.3, information access restrictions. Access to information and other associated assets shall be restricted in accordance with the established topic-specific policy on access control. So remember, we don't going to show you all the 93 controls, just to give you an overview of those. But what these controls, so all the companies need to run all 93 controls in order to comply ISO 27001. That's a big question. So that's why they created the SoA, Statement of Applicability. That the Statement of Applicability is a crucial document in the ISO 27001 Information Security Management System framework. It serves as a comprehensive summary that describes which of the controls outlined in the Annex A are applicable to the organization. It also usually explains how each control is implemented or why it is excluded. So the invitation of the ISO is at least be aware of all the controls that you can run into your organization, because sometimes, or most of the times, companies say, oh no, I implemented, I don't know, 5 controls for the all information security management system, and only 5 controls. And why do you do that? Oh no, maybe I don't know. I didn't know that other control exists. I didn't occur to me what other controls can I use. So in this, when you read the ISO, basically you say, okay, this is all the things that you can do to protect your information. At least read it, at least know them, and then decide into the context of your organization what controls you can use. And if you choose not to use a specific control, let's answer the question, why are you not implemented or using this specific control? And this exercise, it helps the company to understand and be more aware of the information security management system. And of course, the auditor will like that as well. So basically, the document contains determine all controls that are necessary to implement the information security risk treatment options chosen. Note 1, organization can design control as required or identify them from any source. Compare the controls determined above with those in the Annex A and verify that not necessary controls have been omitted. Here is important that the ISO don't require that the control need to be the specific controls of the norm. You don't have to use a specific the 93 controls. You can use this as the source. Maybe you're using another source like NIST, for instance, or not. This is optional. Note 2, this is from the norm. Annex A contains a list of possible information security controls. Users of this document are directed to Annex A to ensure that no necessary information security controls are overlooked. And note 3, the information security controls listed in Annex A are not exhaustive, and additional information security control can be included if needed. So after you choose the control that you want to use into your information security management system, then justification for the inclusion. Why you choose a specific control, and the control that you don't use, why you don't use it, and whether the necessary control are implemented or not. Maybe you choose a specific control. You say, I'm going to run this specific control, but it's not implemented yet. So I decided that I want to run this specific control, but I'm still working on it. This is also okay for the auditor or the ISO. Is the awareness that you want to use a specific control or choose not using another. And again, the justification for excluding any of the Annex A controls. So basically, the statement of applicability, one, you're going to select the controls. The SoA lists the controls that the organization has decided to apply on an information security management system. These controls are chosen based on a comprehensive risk assessment, as well as legal, contractual, and other requirements that the organization is obliged to meet. Then justification for its inclusion or exclusion. For each control listed on Annex A of ISO 27001, the SoA should indicate whether the control is applicable and explain why. If a control is not implemented, the SoA should provide justification for its exclusion. This ensures that any interest parties can understand why certain controls were or were not implemented. And give a status of implementation. The SoA often includes the status of each control implementation, providing an overview of how far along the organization is in applying the selected controls. So, in essence, the statement of applicability provides a link between the risk assessment and risk treatment processes and the selection of controls that have been applied. It is fundamental for demonstrating compliance and is often considered a live document that should be updated regularly to reflect the current state of the organization information security management system. So this is basically the theory of the ISO 27001 and the statement of applicability. So that is common in these master classes. We want to show you how you can do this in a software for risk management of information security like Pirani that can help you to do this. So let's move on to the software. Remember that Nicole going to put you in the chat. If you want to try this exercise with us, you can create a free trial account in just 2 minutes to do the exercise. You don't need to put any credit card. It's just 2 minutes to create the account, and you will have access for the whole features for 15 days. Remember that the software are the leaders in risk management, easy to use, best usability, best relationship. It is a very good tool to try. So let's go to the software that looks something like this. Remember that Pirani has different risk management systems. So today we're going to work specifically with the information security risk management. So when you coming to Pirani, it would look something like this. You're going to have a dashboard of your risk heat map, all the risks that you have created, uh, uh, and a dashboard with the processes, information, assets, risks, controls, incidents, action plans, assessments. So remember, the first type of our risk management assessment and plan start with all the processes of your company that you should have the process map. We don't go into deep into today. We already have a master class about processes, but remember that you need to, the first step of the risk management cycle is to understand the context of your company. So what are the processes that your company are running, like sales processes, talent management, human resources, technology, whatever processes are you running into your company. But there's a very important aspect of information security management system that maybe is not that important in operational risk management or anti-money laundering or another management system, that is the information assets. This this is the most important thing in the information security management system that the name saying. So in this case, what information are the most valuable asset that you have into your company? Some examples: do you have a CRM, a customer relationship management system? Do you have a database? Where do you have the information of your employees, your providers, your suppliers, your clients? This is a spreadsheet. This is a document. Is a database. Is in Access. Is in a hub. Is in HubSpot, like a CRM. Is in Salesforce. Where do you have that information? Or do you have physical information? Do you have bills? Or where do you have a server for all the information of your clients? Where do you have the private employee information? So in all those are information assets. You can have as many as you need. Or maybe some of this information are at lists, are actual data, or maybe do you have a provider with information? You can list as many as you have. So we're going to work with an information asset that all companies need to have. That is the private employee information. Every company has employees. That's why there's a company. So when you have an information asset, remember that there are three main concepts in information security management system. So when you create the information asset, that in this case, this private employee information, rate all the aspects. What is the critical aspect of the confidentiality? It is low, it is medium, it is high. Because maybe you have employees that you have the address, the cell phone, the email, but maybe you also have how many kids have your employees, if they have any health condition. You cannot share that information easily, of course. So you need to rate the confidentiality, the integrity. Do you have all this information? Or maybe you have it one day when you hire the person and then you forget or you delete or you lost the information for your first employees of your company. The information should be good. Maybe all the addresses of your employees only are 50% updated. So maybe it's not, the integrity is not that good. Or maybe you don't have the last email or the last social security number, I don't know. And what's the availability? If you need to use that information, you can access that information easily, or do you have to look for a very difficult procedure to find that? If you need to use all the private information of your employees right now. If the auditor tells you, give me all the addresses of your employees, can you give me that information within 2 minutes? Or do you need to look for, oh no, maybe from headquarters is good, or maybe there are another headquarters or another offices, I don't have it. So this is the main concept of information security management system in ISO. In Pirani, you can also create another concepts. Some companies tell us to do that, but you can do that in Pirani as well. But remember, this is the three main, the most important. And what type of asset is this? This is people, this is hardware, this is software, this is services, this is networks, this is an intangible. So you can choose also what type of asset it is, and a description that helps you understand what is this information assets. In this case, private employee information comprises sensitive personal data such as social security number, financial records, and health information. Unauthorized access, alteration, or loss could have severe legal repercussions, harm employees, and damage the organizational reputation. You can add evidence of this, and most important, you can associate these information assets with some of your processes. For instance, administrative process, talent management process, security information. You could associate all the procedures and processes that you list in the software. And there's another interesting thing that you can associate threats and vulnerabilities in your company. Remember that ISO 27005 has a list of threats and vulnerabilities. Remember, threats are external, vulnerabilities are internal, that can affect this information security asset. So in this case, we put an example in a threat of this information could be social engineer or theft of digital identity or credentials, sending or distributing of malware in as threats. Vulnerabilities, uncontrolled copying, unprotected storage, insufficient physical protection of the building doors and windows. So you can associate as many threats and vulnerabilities to your information assets. And of course, you can associate risks into these information assets and responsible. So you need to list all the information assets in your company, and then you're going to make the risk assessment, the risk rating. So when we go into the risk aspect, the risk dashboard, we're going to see something like this. Some of companies may list the risks associated with the information security management system. So this is an example of data breach. A data breach could occur to various factors, such as cyber attack, including negligence or malfeasance. And a third-party security breach, the consequences of the data breach can be severe, including financial losses, legal liabilities, damage for reputation. So when you list the risks, then you're going to write them to put it in your risk heat map. So what will be the impact of consequence of these risks happen? Maybe this is minor, significant, serious, critical, catastrophic. For instance, these names are from the ISO 27005. This is the names that they suggest. So the impact of a data breach will be critical. And what is the likelihood of that happen in your company? It is unlikely, rather unlikely, likely, very unlikely, or almost certain. So we're going to put likely. So then you can see it located in real time in your risk heat map. And the ISO also suggests that you select what is the risk source of these risks. So you're going to see in this specific example that when we choose the risk source, it is technical, it is environmental, or it is human. Now we can say, maybe we can create two different data breach, because maybe we have a data breach that is technical or something that is data breach from human, right? And maybe do you have the idea of creating two different rigs? So in this case, we put human. And what is the risk treatment that you're gonna treat or you put into the rigs? So remember that in different frameworks, there are basically 4 risk treatment for every risk. You can transfer or share the risk. It's basically like when you hire an insurance company or something like this, you can accept, you can say, okay, I'm not going to do this. I don't going to do anything about this. Or risk modification or mitigation. This is basically when you do risk management. If you choose risk modification or risk mitigation, you're going to do something to move the risk from here to yellow or to green. You want to mitigate this risk in your risk heat map, or you avoid. This is when you say, okay, I'm not gonna run that process. So I was telling that I'm gonna open an office in, I don't know, in Ukraine, and I list a lot of risks. So to avoid is not open the office in Ukraine, because risks won't disappear. When you avoid a risk is when you don't want to face that risk. You don't have anything to do with that risk. But remember, risk cannot be eliminated. So then you create the risk, and remember that you associate this risk with your information asset, like private employee information. And then if we say that we want to mitigate those risks, that we want to move the risk from the orange area to the yellow or the green one, that's the residual risk after a control. If we put a control into a risk, is because I want to mitigate that control. And if we want to mitigate that control, we're going to move the risk from one area to another area. So basically, that's what the controls of the ISO are for. So let's go to move. I'm seeing Andy is asking something in the chat. Can you assign 2 risk treatment options to a single risk sample? Just giving me transfer by taking insurance and modification and training employees. Yes, completely. Yes, it's up to you into your methodology. So let me show you some example of this. So when you customize Pirani to your methodology, but to answer that, this is not the most common thing to do, but there are not still or secure rules to do that. It's up to you what you want to do. So we want something in Pirani that is the customizable fields. That you want to ask for everything into your company creation of anything. So in the risk, as you can see, you have risk source. So we choose that single selection. No, you're asking about risk treatment. So we choose a single selection menu. So maybe we can change that for risk treatment and put not single selection menu, but multiple selection menu. So I'm going to put, for instance, mitigation, and another one, just for the example, and transfer. And I'm gonna publish. Again, this is a not very common example, but just to show you what you can do to answer Andy. So when you come to Pirani and create a new risk, now we can choose risk treatment 2. And in this case, you can choose different. So like your example, I'm going to transfer, but I'm also going to mitigate. So you can choose both. So the answer in Pirani, yes, you can do that. And to continue to with this example, some companies, they don't, okay, what risks? Remember that the most common issue in risk management is to face the blank page. Because for instance, the ISO 27001 give us 93 controls. The ISO 27005 gives us examples of threats and vulnerabilities, but no ISO give us an example of risk. So Pirani also have the feature of suggest risk with AI. So maybe I'm going to choose, I don't know, Andy, if you tell me what industry are you in? Maybe it's financial, insurance, technology, communications, retail, health, manufacture. It's gonna choose consultant, and I'm gonna choose process. What process are you wanna see suggestions of? I'm gonna put marketing. So if you put suggest, we are connecting with ChatGPT, so they suggest some information security in the context of information security management system. All these suggestions of risk are in the context of ISO 27000 or need of information security management system. So lots of confidential client information, financial loss due to cybercrime, business disruption due to system malfunction. So you can use this to start doing your risk management with this suggestion and not facing the blank page. So, and then you rate the risks into your risk heat map, right? Okay, so let's go to controls. So remember, when you choose to mitigate a risk, is because you want to move. You have the inherent risk, that is the original rating or assess of your risk, and you want to mitigate that risk. That will be the residual risk, and you're going to have that residual risk because of controls. So remember that ISO says you can create controls by yourself. You can, maybe you are a consultant, or do you have a lot of experience in the business, so you already know what typical controls you can make into your company. So you can create a control from zero. What's the name of the control? What's the description? Maybe you want to add an evidence of that control. And there's a very important thing about the control is, how can I know if the control is good, is weak, is strong, and how much it will mitigate the risk that I associated? So we have some control questions in order that helps you qualify the strength of this control. So again, you can create the control from zero, or you can use the controls of the ISO, the 93 controls of the ISO. So I don't know if you remember that in our dashboard of Pirani, it says that we have 100 controls in our risk management system, because we have the 93 controls of the norm, and we also create another 7 controls. You don't have to do this. Remember, maybe you create 10, and that's okay for your company, or you only want to use the 93 controls of the norm, or you're gonna have both. So in our control panel, we have all the controls, as you can see, you have the number 8.33 is the ISO control of the ISO control of the Annex A, or we can create another controls if I like. But remember, again, the norm, you should not have overlap controls. You should, so you need to be very specific and say, okay, you should not put the same control in different words. But just to put it an example. So in this specific control, the 8.33, I'm gonna see how it works. Remember, this is a technological control, is the number 8. So to help us make this the qualification and the strength of the control, we're gonna ask, okay, this control is corrective, is detective, or is preventive? Remember, always is better prevent that adjust, that correct. So if it's preventive, it will be a higher qualification, as you can see. But if we have it is corrective, it will be lower. The type of execution, it is automatic, is manual, or is combined. It is manual, it is going to be lower. And in real time, we can see how the control is moving because of the responses. It is documented, so if it is not, it will be lower. Do you have any evidence? Do you have this control has an owner? If not, it will be lower. So like this, we can rate every control of the company. And then the important thing, the statement of applicability. So the first thing is you're going to use this specific control. You're going to use the test information control into your company to any risks, to mitigate any risks, to associate with any process. So the answer is yes or no, will be the first question. And again, what's the justification to do that? Why yes, why not? And maybe you can choose yes, that you're going to use this specific control with some specific risks, but maybe you can put that is not implemented. So you want to create and use this control, but you're going to work on that, or partially implemented or implemented. So once you answer this question, basically you have the evidence that the ISO requires. So let's go to see some examples. So if we have 100 controls here, it is maybe difficult to find all the control that you want. So remember that you can also filter in Pirani. So we're going to say, okay, let me see the category only for people controls. Also the 6 controls. Sorry, the 8 controls that are number 6. So for instance, screening. Remember that I show you that the first control of default 6.1 was a screening. So in Pirani, okay, 6.1 screening. I already rate that control in my company. This is a people control, and I put no, I'm not going to use screening in my company. What's the justification? We are not obligated to screen in anti-money laundering regulation yet in my country, for instance. And so it's not implemented. So at least you are telling the auditor or the regulatory entity that you are aware of the control and why you choose not to use it, right? And maybe, for instance, this is another control: responsibilities after termination or change of employment. This is a control, a people control, information security responsibilities and duties that remain valid after termination or change of employment shall be defined, enforced, and communicated to relevant personnel and other interested parties. In this case, we put no, we don't gonna run that control because we don't have the financial and legal muscle to follow up on such actions. So we don't have implemented that control in our company. So we are aware that that control exists. That's something that we can do, but we still not doing it yet. for instance. So that's why you can run all the controls and you can filter. Okay, show me all the organizational controls, the filters, and let's go to review every single one to see if they're implemented or not, or if I want to create it or not. So once we when we choose a control on how can this control actually mitigate the risks? So look, when we have the risks, the inherent risks of data breach and unauthorized access to sensitive information, the inherent risk was all of the risks all was high. But after we associate and specific controls, the residual risk is medium because it moves into the risk heat map because of the controls. So, for instance, employee information leakage will be a risk. And the inherent risk with this and is associated with the asset information that is private employee information. It is also associated with threats and vulnerabilities. So we put not one, but 3 different controls. We associated with implement confidentiality agreement that will mitigate the impact or the likelihood. We can choose what will mitigate. We choose 5.1 control, that is policies for information security. We also associate the control of terms and conditions of employment. And we can choose, okay, this will mitigate the impact or the likelihood. And remember, this is a very important good practice in risk management is layer control. Maybe you have a detective control, a preventive control, a corrective control, and based on the strength of the control, it will mitigate the control and have the residual risks, a different residual risks. So once we have changes, now we can see that we move an inherent risk of high to a residual risk of medium. So we can have that report into the report areas of Pirani. So if we go to the report item in the menu, we can, for instance, has a risk heat map report of how many residual risks and inherent risks do we have. So as you can see, the residual risk is all the risks that we are mitigating because of risk management and controls that are we running into the Pirani. We can have a comparative map, download in PDF, PNG, or have a specific detail of what's going on in this, right? But to make the SoA, the statement of applicability, we can also download that report in the dynamic report sections. So we go into my reports and create a specific report of statement of applicability. So in this specific example, I say, okay, give me all the people controls. So I have all 8 controls. I put this because it's the lower number. So I can put, okay, give me the control, the category, the description, the statement of applicability, if yes or not, the justification, and what is the implementation of every control, and if had any association with risk. So all this information should be complete, right? But just for example, so once you have this information, so you show the auditor, okay, show me what the controls are you running into your company, and if what the controls have you selected, what the controls are you using, how many controls are implemented or partially implemented. Basically, you have the inform and the report here. The background verification, the screening, the responsibility after, and you can put this report in Pirani or download in Excel or CSV for any other report that maybe you are creating for your auditor of your regulatory entity. So that's how you can run, you can use the 92 controls of the ISO 27001 standard and run the statement of applicability and decide what controls are you using, justify why are you using or not using it, and if are implemented or not. So basically, that's the information that we want to share with you guys today. I don't know if you have any more questions in the questions and answer link.
Alejandro, we have a few questions. Andy asked us about, can you assign 2 risk treatment options to a single risk?
Oh, I already respond that in the yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I interrupted.
So Joseph asked, which of type of control we have seen is the most important for a financial company?
Well, that's a very good question. This is not a ranking of more important controls or no. Basically, the idea is that you need to see the whole picture of the controls, the 92 controls. Because again, there's not one specific control that's gonna solve all your problems. It is a combination of factors, like the categorization that we have. You will need to have control. The simple answer is be sure that you have controls from every category. You don't have, you don't need, please don't have only people controls. People control are important. There are 8 controls there, but do you have any technological control? That will be the first question. Oh no, yeah, no, maybe we just have people control and we never thought about technological control. Or we have a lot of technological control, but we don't have any physical control for the, I don't know, for the ATMs or for the offices or for the whatever. So the first thing is be sure that you have controls from every category, and then give the opportunity to understand and at least read all the 92 controls to say if you, because sometimes just by reading it, it gives you ideas. I think that's the best thing. That's the best part of the annex, because again, most companies don't run controls not because they don't care or they don't, because they don't have, I don't know, the imagination or the idea that they can use. For instance, secure coding. Secure coding principles shall be applied to software development. Security testing in development and acceptance. Are you development team? Are you technological team in the financial industry? Our testing processes shall be defined and implemented in the development life cycle. That will be the first question. Please be aware of all the controls. And this gives you another idea. If there are 37 organizational controls and 34 technological controls, there's a lot of things to do that. So in the years that are running, that we have a lot of technology, web applications, there's a lot of controls in technology that we can run. But remember, organizational control is not just technology. It's not just software and hardware. We need to run organizational control. We need to be aware of the culture and learning. We need to train our people and make them understand what these controls are important, because maybe you choose 93 controls and you want to implement 93 controls, but with the culture of your company is not aware of those, you're not doing anything at all.
And Alejandro, we go back with Andy because he asked if you implemented something to reduce a risk, so the qualification results go up or down. Would Pirani retain the history of the risk?
That's a very good, that's a very good question. Yeah, basically, let me show you in reports. That's a very good question because that's doing risk management. So everything is recorded in Pirani. That's why you need a comparative map, for instance, in the last 3 months. So Pirani going to show us the history of your risk management. So in this case, as you can see, we have a risk here, and then we don't have here in May. Maybe because I create a new one, or because we move it, or because just the inherent or the residual. So all the history will be put in Pirani. That's why you need to use, that's one of the advantage of using a risk management software and not a spreadsheet or Excel, because you need to have that trace, that history of how your risks are moving up or down. That's a very good question, Andy.
Well,
So that's it. Is 1 hour of our risk management school. Remember, we have these master classes for half an hour theory and half an hour practice. Thank you very much for joining today. Thank you very much, Nicole, for be the host and moderate the questions. I hope to see you in a next risk management school.
Thank you so much to you, Alejandro, for your valuable participation in this webinar. Finally, I would like to invite everyone to participate in a short survey that will appear when the meeting ends. This will help us a lot to continue improving our webinars. Thank you so much for your participation, and see you soon.